And a motion? All right.
Second, Kwasniewski.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Today, I will be brief. Pedestrian facilities, bridges, emissions reduction projects, highway and transit projects.
No, it came on last second when Aaron was speaking.
Important and critical investment in our region's future, our economy, our climate, and the people here. In addition to the deputies and the team that you see, Elizabeth and Daniel, and have seen over the past couple months, there's been a whole cohort of staff across the agency, whether they exist in our modeling team or on our policy team or on our planning team, who have also been working really hard behind the scenes to make this happen. So I just wanted to take a moment and recognize them. Again, there are too many names to list, but really they have done an outstanding job and poured their hearts and souls into the work that we've been doing and talking to you all in your teams as well. So again, thank you. Again, your partnership, again, for folks and partners around this table has been invaluable for us. Again, we can do tough things together here as a region for the 8.5 million people that live here in Chicagoland. With that, that concludes my report. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Aaron? If not, CMAP board report, Leanne.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just to clarify, because it's a bit confusing because we have both boards sitting here at the table, this is my report as the MPO representative to the board, so I'm reporting back to the MPO on what the board has been doing, if that makes sense.
Want to repeat that?
As clear as mud. I can, if you like. So the board last met, besides the meeting we had jointly last month, but the board last met on June 14. At that meeting, they approved the onto 2050, 2023, 2027 conformity analysis and TIP amendment. The CMAP region is a non-attainment area. I think most of you know that for ozone standards, and is required to demonstrate that its long-range plan and the TIP conform to the emissions requirements and essentially the emission budgets for the region. The board also discussed possible amendments to its bylaws. It received a legislative update at the state and federal levels and discussed the ongoing work related to the plan of action or the part report. We collectively met last month, so I don't need to report out on what transpired at that meeting. So that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Leanne. Under the council mayor's report, Mayor Shelkey.
Push my button. We have not had an opportunity to meet rather recently. We've had some conversations about what's going on, and we're watching this very carefully as to what's happening. So I will defer anything further because I didn't have any report to give you as far as the council of mayors go.
Thank you, Mayor. Next item on the agenda is procurements and contracts. There are 8 of them, and we will have a short overview of those items. Alicia?
Oh, it's on, okay. Good afternoon, Mayor Bennett, CMAP Board, others in attendance. So I'll try to be as brief as possible considering there are 8 of them. So 5.01, Purpose and Action, Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, in partnership with the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus, will participate in Phase 1 planning work related to the US EPA Climate Pollution Reduction Grant, program funds granted to MMC. CMAP staff is seeking board approval to enter into a 4-year agreement with MMC to complete this project. Funding will be provided by MMC through an award for the US EPA CPRG program. 5.02, on June 8, 2023, the CMAP board approved a contract with Arctic Information Technology, Inc. for the project management and implementation of a new ERP system. There is a need to increase the scope of service to ensure efficient time card management and to connect to the ERP with the agency's payroll and human resources system. The additional services will result in a not-to-exceed cost of $239,422 for a total amended contract amount of $2,633,642 and will be funded through fiscal year 2023 operating grants. 5.03, CMAP has developed a multi-year plan to expand, update, and secure the agency's hardware and software infrastructure to meet growing demands. The equipment will be purchased using CDWG's contract under the Sourcewell Cooperative Agreement for Government Procurements and will also be funded by fiscal year 2023 UWP operating budget. 5.04, CMAP is seeking to develop comprehensive countrywide SAPs for Cook, DuPage, Kane, Lake, McHenry, and Will counties. CMAP requests authorization to enter into up to 6 contracts with selected firms or consultants. Funding will be provided through the SS4A discretionary grant program to advance efforts to support the U.S. Department of Transportation's National Roadway Safety Strategy and a goal of 0 deaths and serious injuries on our nation's roadways. 5.05 on the agenda, CMAP is seeking a consultant to develop and execute a region-wide engagement and equity campaign for Cook, DuPage, Kane, Lake, McHenry, and Will counties. Funding will be provided through the SS4A discretionary grant program to support efforts by the U.S. Department of Transportation's National Roadway Safety Strategy and goal of 0 deaths and serious injuries on roadways. 5.06, CMAP completed renovation and furnishings to the agency's 4th floor space at the old post office in 2020. A competitive procurement process was completed in 2020 in which Consolidated Flooring was the selected vendor for flooring coverings. With a return to in-person meetings, there is a need to cover the marble floor in the hallway and tile hallway floors to suppress noise and to reduce slipperiness of floors due to rainwater and snow being tracked on the floor. Staff seeks authorization to enter into a contract for a not-to-exceed amount of $27,500 with a vendor to cover the public meeting room hallways. Support for this work will be provided with the fiscal year 2023 UWP funds. 5.07, in 2020, CMAP completed renovation and furnishing of the fourth floor space at the old post office, but delayed completion of the fifth floor space due to uncertainties in the marketplace. In March 2023, the CMAP board approved a cost increase to complete the remaining furnishings on the fifth floor. Some of the furnishings originally requested for purchase are no longer available, and CMAP has sought alternative pieces. Staff is seeking approval of a $5,400 contract increase with Henriksen to complete the furnishings. Support for this cost increase will be provided with fiscal year 2023 UWP funds. And the last item, 5.08, CMAP maintains large data resources for use in its development, projection, and evaluation of land use and transportation in the northeastern Illinois region. CMAP requests authorization to enter into a one-year contract with NearMap for the commercial data set, and support for this service will be provided with fiscal year 2024 operating funds. We are seeking CMAP board approval for the items that I have just read.
The chair will seek a motion to approve all 8 of those items. Is there a motion?
So moved, Noak.
Second, Darch.
Moved and seconded. Any questions? If not, all those in favor signify by a vote of aye. Opposed, vote of no. The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have to go back. MPO has one other set of minutes to approve, correct?
That's right. If we could go back to 3.01, my apologies, an approval of the June 8th meeting. While we're going back, I will just recognize that Chair Pirog has arrived on the MPO Policy Committee, as has Mayor Brawley from the CMAP board. All right, Mr. Secretary.
Well, thank you. I think all of us were in a hurry to get to item 6.04. So with that, I will entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes from June 8th, 2023 for the MPO Policy Committee. Second? Right. All in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. Motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Now we move on to item 601. Aaron?
Yes, thank you very much. Election of the MPO Policy Committee Vice Chair. Per the MPO bylaws, every June, the chair appoints a subcommittee as described in our bylaws for the election of the vice chair of the MPO Policy Committee the following year. In 2022, Jennifer Sis-Killen was the subcommittee's recommended candidate to serve as the vice chair for calendar year 2023, and the MPO Policy Committee elected her at their October meeting of last year. As is customary for the MPO, the vice chair typically serves 2 consecutive terms. The MPO Policy Nominating Subcommittee, comprised of Frank Beal, representing the Regional Planning Agency, Mike Connolly, representing the Public Transportation Agency, Mayor Jeff Schilke, representing municipal government, Tom Rickert, representing counties, and Vig Krishnamurthy, representing highways or roads, transportation, met on September 14th to review the names of the candidates. They have recommended that Jennifer Sis-Killen continue as their nominee, serving her second year as vice chair for the MPO Policy Committee in 2024.
I just wanted to say a couple of things. So first of all, I commend the selection committee for their excellent choice. Sis-Killen is someone I have known for quite a while. She is one of the best, 24 years in the industry. She's thoughtful, innovative. She brings total energy and commitment to what she does. She's an asset to the transportation industry. I value what you do, Sis, and Madam President, you have a good one. Thank you.
We also need you to entertain a motion for the nomination.
Right. And then I will entertain a motion to approve the nomination of Jennifer Sis-Killen as the Vice Chair of the MPO Policy Committee for calendar year 2024. Please state your name when you motion or second. Thank you. All in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. Motion carried.
Thank you. Next item on the approval of the Policy Committee meeting schedule for 2024.
Schedule.
I will entertain a motion to approve the MPO Policy Committee meeting schedule for 2024. Second.
Shilkey.
All in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. Motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Next item on the agenda is going to take an approval from each of the boards. It's regarding the federal fiscal year 2024-2028 SDP program, congestion mitigation, air quality, CMAC, carbon reduction program, CRP, and the locally programmed transportation alternatives. And Doug, you're going to give an overview?
Yes, I am. Thank you. So for your consideration today is the federal fiscal year 2024 to 2028 SDP Shared Fund, CMAC, Carbon Reduction, and Local Transportation Alternatives Program. These programs include a total of 66 projects that were selected from 129 applications that were received in response to a joint call that was issued this past January. The draft programs were available for public comment from July 13th through August 11th, and one comment was received in support of the CMAC and CRP programs. Based upon the nature of that comment, no changes were made to the draft programs. The programs have been incorporated into the TIP Amendments 24-1.1, .2, and .3, and the Transportation Committee approved these TIP amendments and recommends the final approval of the CMAP Board and the MPO Policy Committee. So with that, I would be willing to answer any questions on the programs.
Any questions? If not, for the CMAP Board, I'll entertain a motion to approve that recommendation.
Motion, Noak.
Moved and seconded. Further questions? If not, all those in favor signify by a vote of aye.
Aye.
Opposed, vote no. The motion carries. Thanks, Doug.
And likewise, I'll entertain the same motion to approve from the MPO Policy Committee.
Second, Redden.
All in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. Motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, and we get down to the meat of this meeting, so to speak, and the core reason for, one of the core reasons why this combination of both the MPO and Policy Committee and MPO are here today, and that's to finally get to a point of the recommendation of the plan of action, which was required under state statute for us to come up with. Has been explained, and not to go over multiple times, the work that's been done by this organization in cooperation with the entire region, 7 counties, 285 municipalities, the business community, the other not-for-profit organizations that have been involved in the transparency and the development of this recommendation over that period of time can't be said enough. As number of hours that have gone into it. So, Laura, if you want to give us one more summary.
Excellent. I want to make sure that I echo Executive Director Alleman's remarks that we are thankful to everyone here for your support and engagement over this past year as this sprint instead of a marathon that we're usually used to at CMAP. So very thankful for your support and engagement. Next slide. We're excited to resubmit a revised plan of action for regional transit report to you last week. The report submittal was accompanied by a revised resolution, the written comments we received, as well as a change log, so you could monitor all of the changes without having to reread all 125 pages if you didn't want to. We additionally added the web page because there are still a number of resources that continue to be housed there and will continue to be housed there. I think it's important to take a moment to put in context how we approached the edits since we were last here last month and why. So since we began this endeavor, it was really important to the entire staff and team as we look towards input, engagement, and information. We built off of the extensive public engagement that had already been conducted by RTA during their strategic planning process. We made sure to gather non-governmental voices to advise us through the steering committee. We conducted focus groups throughout the region in both McHenry, Cook, Will counties, as well as meeting with regional labor and social service agencies. Specific recommendations were brought to the Community Alliance for Regional Equity to ensure that we had new voices at the table. We prioritized and met with, many more than once, the county boards, regional councils of mayors, councils of government, the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus. We also presented to and listened to the concerns of each of the RTA, CTA, PACE, and Metro boards. Lastly, we intently listened to you, our board and MPO, in the meeting remarks from last month. We reviewed the official letters that you submitted to us. We had internal discourse and weighed all of the thoughts and concerns that we had heard over the past year. And we are hopeful that you will find that the changes strengthened, clarified, and ultimately improved the final report. Next slide. Concerning the report as a whole and how it was framed, we heard that what we discussed here at the board and MPO many times, we needed to heighten the importance of transit's connection to regional mobility, our climate goals, and the equity considerations for our region. So we worked to do that in this next edit. Another change you'll see reflected throughout the report is increased language for the need of state of good repair for the transit system. And while we were directed to address generally the operating side of this equation, we cannot ignore the lasting and significant need for additional state of good repair funding in Northeast Illinois. CMAP has and will continue to advocate for these resources. We also had an amount of interest in how we determine, describe, or evaluate how changes are made post-COVID into our future and what that looks like. Who is transit serving? How does transit build back? So we worked to make sure that we updated the map of transit availability in relation to where people are and where they're working, as that can be helpful in those future discussions. And I'm going to pass it over to Daniel for a moment to talk about more specific edits to the 3 content sections.
Thank you, Laura, and good afternoon, everyone. So I'm going to walk through some of the more specific edits relating to the 3 themes in the report, starting with the system we want, the system improvements. You can go to the next slide, please. So as we shared in the change log that Laura referenced, this section had relatively the fewest edits, but we did make changes to clarify and highlight the connections between the system improvements and the other elements of the part report. As Laura just shared, we highlighted connections to things like regional climate goals, state climate goals, equity considerations, as well as the need to focus on state of good repair as a complementary set of investments and support to the broader part recommendations. We also made some additional clarifications on specific recommendation topics in response to some questions and feedback that we received, calling out opportunities for stronger coordination between the region's transit service providers and other public agencies like social service providers, because we know that many of the issues like safety and security and cleanliness are not just transit's problem to solve, and that they will require close partnership and collaboration with other stakeholders. The other one that we wanted to call out is that there's an expanded discussion of the opportunities and challenges related to the shift to the regional rail service model, and thinking about what kinds of ongoing agreements and coordination will be required with freight railroad partners, as well as the need to consider how these changes would interact with the existing operational capacity and capital assets. And so we logged specific changes on those topics in the change log. In the next slide, I want to just highlight the system improvements going into how we pay for it. And so here we highlighted and made some clarifications to focus the report on the scale of investments that will be needed to achieve the system that we want as a region. The opening has some additional discussion on the historical funding levels and the inflexibility of existing funding formulas. As with the system improvements, we also called out the need for additional investments in state of good repair and the connections between our funding sources and the region's climate and equity goals. As you may have seen in the updated report, we also focused the discussion on how the region and state could achieve this transformational investment specifically, and thinking about which revenue solutions we think would be part of any funding package, and which could be part of a broader menu of options for the state to consider, with a mix of short and long-term options that could phase in and out over time as new revenues become possible. We had a few specific questions that we wanted to note. One is that we had some questions about what kinds of system actions would be realistic and feasible in terms of savings, minimizing cost growth, and boosting fare revenue. And so we added some additional context in terms of what might be possible in the near term on all of those topics while we're making parallel investments in the system. We also had some clarification questions about what revenues fit in which buckets and which categories, and so we added some additional labeling and context to make sure that it's clear that if some revenues that are recommended are not able to be pursued, that it's clear which ones might be appropriate alternatives for each of those potential solutions. And then finally, we have a series of edits, context, examples, and clarifications on the how to implement it section of the report. And so what we wanted to highlight here is that in response to questions we received about the rationale for different kinds of changes, we made edits that highlighted how the different pieces of the report are interrelated and how they can reinforce one another. We had a lot of questions from this group, both in meeting and in writing, about what we referred to as option 2. And so we made some adjustments to bring continuity to what we were calling that throughout the nomenclature of that option and clarify what it would mean and the kinds of changes that would be required to pursue it. Last month, there was a specific question that we actually answered during the meeting, but we reflected in the text, which is that people asked, what would the principles mean with respect to any subsidiary boards or committees? And as my colleague Amy Lee shared last month, the principles were meant to apply to any of the potential boards and committees, and so we reflected that explicitly. And then finally, we added a number of additional details and figures on the kinds of specific issues that the legislature and the region and the broader state would need to consider when pursuing either of the governance reform paths that are outlined in the report. And so we've outlined those, thinking about considerations like debt and how the legislature would need to consider those in different versions of potential reform. With that, I'm going to hand it back to Laura, who's going to walk through the updated resolution and next steps in the part process. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Daniel. The final revision we submitted to you in your packet is the action motion of the resolution. Upon conferring with stakeholders, we believe that the delivery of this document is the next key milestone to the ongoing policy and legislative discussions needed to achieve our goal of supporting the transit system. So we are asking you today that you authorize us to submit the report to the General Assembly and the Governor for their consideration. Next slide. If the board and MPO so choose to provide us that authorization today, we will deliver this report to the Governor and General Assembly before the end of this year. We anticipate that as the civic discourse on the subject continues, we'll engage in additional conversations in support of those recommendations, and we'll be ready to provide additional analysis and research. Again, we thank you for your support and guidance, and I'll hand it back over to the chairs for discussions and to address the resolution.
Thank you, Laura. Are there any questions of the two presentations that were just made? Yes.
I just have one, just in regards to the changing of option 2 to say regional entity. And obviously it was a structured strengthening of the RTA. Just curious, like why the RTA was taken all out of it, and does this mean there's going to be a new regional entity?
No, it
Or-
was really for clarification of when we said what that meant. People were wondering what that would actually additionally mean. So if you'll see in the clarifications underneath that, it's still, by saying regional entity, what we're meaning is that what the RTA would become or how that would change with the things that we labeled underneath. So we did take that out, but it is still that same regional entity. It wouldn't be another additional entity.
I guess the only thing that's a little confusing is both option 1 and option 2 are both called regional entity. And I guess all along, I think the option 2 was a strengthening or empowered RTA. And I just don't know why RTA is being left out of the narrative.
Yeah, I would say, again, we were trying to make sure the nomenclature was the same, and then also just to make sure that that entity was empowered to do the things that we were asking it to do. So appreciate that concern.
Other questions?
I want to support that notion, considering so much of the entity, everybody mentioned the fact that specifically their preference on the second option was to empower the RTA. It just seems concerning that since so many entities express that specifically for the RTA by language, that it would be removed.
So I would just say that we understand and trying to make sure the nomenclature, that that option is still in the intention and in the content is still the same thing as what you saw in option 2, the first draft.
Yeah, I was just going to say, as we've had these conversations back and forth with folks individually, I think we wanted to provide some context around, well, what does a strengthened RTA look like? And so we were provided consistency by calling it the same thing. But you'll see in the tables that we are still talking about one of the things that this option provides is that you would open the RTA Act and provide them with additional powers. And so I think, we wanted to reflect that it would not be the same RTA as we have today, but it could still be called the RTA.
Other questions?
Jerry, do you want comments now or just questions of staff?
We'll take comments now. I mean, the next item would be the motion itself, and whether, I will certainly open up the, after a motion is made, further conversation, so it's up to you. You want to speak now or wait till the motion?
I may be speaking now because I actually was going to offer an amended version of the motion, of the resolution.
Well, the amendment should take place during the motion itself, Mayor.
Whatever your choice is.
The chair would like to entertain a motion to approve the resolution. Is there a motion and a second?
I make that motion. Williams?
Moved and seconded, now questions.
Okay. So I guess I would make my comments and then offer an amendment to the language of the resolution, if I could.
All right.
Okay. So I wanted to comment on 2 items since the last version of the report. One on transit supportive land use. One of the recitals in the resolution submitting part to the General Assembly reminds us that the CMAP board is responsible for developing and adopting a funding and implementation strategy for an integrated land use and transportation planning process. Efficient and transit supportive land use do not adequately, in the plan, the plan and the supporting white papers addressing efficient and transit supportive land use do not adequately recognize or consider the needs of those of the 5.5 million suburban regional residents who must use a vehicle to access transit. Part and supporting papers recommend incentivizing transforming the areas around transit stations from parking lots to TODs. That may be a good plan for some, but there is no recommendation to incentivize parking structures or any parking around transit stations. The 8,544 parking spaces along the 18 UP North and Northwest Line stations in suburban Cook County, and the thousands more across the remainder of the 6-county area, illustrate that thousands of transit riders choose to live outside of the walkshed of transit stations. Yet these transit users have made the green choice to use transit and will continue to do so for decades to come, as long as service is accessible and convenient. CMAP must recognize that choice and support it in its plans, 2050 and part, if we are to do our job in serving the entire region with its diversity of choices and options for the region's residents. My second comment is on governance. The concept in the more acceptable option 2 in the plan, that the state must have a greater voice in a regional transit agency because our duly elected state representatives have appropriated funding, even additional funding, to the agency, defies the concept of a regional self-governance. The regional voice and decision-making of a newly empowered regional agency board must be that of its representative board members, whether from the City of Chicago, other parts of our multi-county region, or the transit operating agencies. These parochial interests working together to reach consensus, particularly on issues such as fair policy and funding allocation, is what will make the regional agency successful in meeting the needs and desires of the region. And that's my comment, and I ask that it be added to the report as it's on my letterhead, and I'll give it to you that way. And then offer as amended language, so the very last line of the resolution, would suggest that it read as follows. Now therefore be it resolved that as required by the Act, the CMAP Board and MPO Policy Committee hereby authorize submission of the Plan of Action for Regional Transit to the Governor and General Assembly by January 1, 2024. I have a typed copy of that, Jerry, which I'm happy to pass around.
I'm sorry, what is the
See
actual
that.
change you're talking about?
So the change actually deletes language. I think it's for their consideration. It's deleting the last part of the last line. Instead of, it just deletes for their consideration of the recommendations contained therein.
Can we
Well,
pull up
Mayor,
this?
I interpret that as after all the work that's been done, including the report, that you're saying, don't put that in. So what's the point of all this work that's been done and the resolution if we're not going to send the recommendation to the General Assembly by eliminating that wording?
I'm sorry, we're submitting the plan of action. The words that are being deleted takes the emphasis off of that what is in the report that we are submitting are recommendations. Given the, we have options in there, we have a menu of various items, we have points of agreement and disagreement as evidenced by all the different commentary that we've received. There's some things that are more important than others. So basically, the amendment is saying, we are doing our job, we've done this report, CMAP's worked really hard to put it together, and we're submitting it as requested to the General Assembly. So it just, that's what happens with all our hard work, that it goes there. And I think all of us are happy maybe to see part depart from us and move on to the General Assembly, and this revision, I think, makes it easier for all of us to support that.
I was going to ask my team if they could get that. They're working on it. Okay, great.
So, I just have a question. What page of the document are we on, just so we have something to look at?
So if you pull up the PowerPoint presentation that you have here, it is the second to last page. On the back side is the now therefore. There we go. Thank you to my team. So I'm just going to reiterate what President Darch said, is that you're asking that we delete for their consideration of the recommendations contained herein.
Yes, that's the request.
I'm sorry, I'm still not understanding the point of why eliminating recommendations. Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you. Let me pull up my notes quickly. So I appreciate all of the hard work and all of the excellent input from the stakeholders and from the CMAT staff and from everybody who's been in this room discussing this for ages. I'll give some color in terms of what are the specific recommendations I think that some of us have concerns about still. There is a concern for those of us in the collar counties that many people who live farther away from the city because it's affordable. So we're concerned about furthering the economic burdens on those very people who already can't afford to live closer in to their place of employment, school, healthcare, you name it. Concerns about the regressive impact of raising tolls. The comments about cordon pricing reflects a lack of understanding that because of transit deserts in the collar counties, many people don't have alternatives to driving to get into the city, to get to work, or the fact that it might take 2 hours one way for them to coordinate bus and train and so on. And I'll just share again my experience today. I had to give a presentation in Naperville at 7 this morning. Couldn't have taken public transit to get there in enough time to then get back, to get to the train that I then needed to take here to get to this meeting, to get back north, to then get to another meeting in Des Plaines. If I had had to depend on public transit, I'd probably be walking at this point. And I think we still want to see the application of an acuity factor, again, to address the very fact that there are transit deserts in the collar counties, and that to have a one-for-one dollar reflection of population is not going to accurately reflect the problems that people have outside of the concentration within the city. I think that's part of what we're saying, is that these recommendations we're not necessarily agreeing with. We agree with part. We agree with so much, 95%, 90% of what's in this report, but to view this as full consensus on every single piece in this 125-page plus report, I think is inaccurate. We want to support the resolution, but we want to do it in a way that reflects the needs of everybody in this room.
Again, in the last paragraph, it refers to submission of a plan of action. Is that not a recommendation?
No, it's what
Again,
we
I'm
were-
just trying to understand the logic
Yeah.
of the disconnect between plan of action and recommendations. Are they not both the same?
Well,
I think, Jerry, the difference is we are asking this General Assembly, as we were asked to do, to consider this report or to receive this report. Whether you call what's contained in the report ideas, proposals, a menu of options, recommendations is a stronger word than I think everybody in this room necessarily wants to go. So this does the job of sending it on to the General Assembly, but it doesn't make anybody go further than they're comfortable with going at this moment.
I'm sorry, other comments?
And,
I gotta hold
just
it,
for
sorry.
formality's sake, may I ask that the MPO also make a motion in a second, so before we get into discussion?
I think.
On the resolution.
Right now, it's before the CMAP board, so from a
Procedural.
protocol, procedural, they should do it first and then MPO second. So whatever is recommended with our vote should also be with the MPO, based upon at least the
Yes, right.
Robert's rule.
Per Robert's rules, let's get both motions on the floor, and then we can all sort of have a joint discussion. So if there is a motion and a second from the MPO Policy Committee.
All right, the chair recognizes that. Or,
Is that okay?
Mr. Secretary, go ahead if you want to make
Yeah.
that motion, and then we'll hold the vote, obviously, based upon at least the motion being on the floor.
Sure. I'll entertain the same motion to approve a resolution to submit the plan of action for regional transit pursuant to Illinois Public Act 102-1028. Second?
Second, Pirog.
All right, thank you, and then we'll recognize Chair Conroy had a comment.
Madam
Thank
Chair.
you. While DuPage County doesn't fully agree with everything in this report, we were unaware of this amendment. So to be honest, I'm not very comfortable with this being brought up the way it is. I would have preferred to have known about it ahead of time. So I will have to listen to the discussion on this.
Other comments?
Mayor Grasso, on behalf of DuPage County to the board, I was struggling with the language the same way. When you read through it, you get to the part where it says, the CMAP Board and MPO Policy Committee hereby authorize submission. And then later, we are, in essence, saying, would you consider our recommendations? Nowhere does this adopt the plan, the part plan. Was that intentional, that this board would not adopt the plan and then submit it? Because I agree with my colleagues here that it reads only as we are resolving to submit the plan. We haven't adopted it, and we're resolving to submit it, and then we're saying, and here are our recommendations. So I see where the amendment is consistent with the fact that we're not adopting and we're just submitting.
Again, that takes it to a whole different level too, and I agree with the county chair. Something like this should have been submitted, if it were to be discussed even further, some time ago. We talk about transparency and certainly the collaboration that's going on with this conversation, but this is a last-minute resolution that I think, for all the board members, and the discussion, again, I'll be honest with you, this plan was requested by the General Assembly, and this plan is going to the General Assembly. And in this plan are recommendations. Otherwise, there's no point of having a plan if we're saying we have a bunch of ideas, we're sending it down to the General Assembly, whatever. I think it takes away from the integrity of all the work that's been done in this plan over the months, drilling out as best we can a conversation to come to a consensus of what this plan should be comprised of, and it is. Certainly, everybody at this table may not agree to every word, every portion or part of this plan in particular. In fact, if anything, I think the conversation we had with everybody was not to get that specific as to move away from a plan or a general recommendation. These are general recommendations to the General Assembly. I believe that everybody in this table who has been at CMAP for some time or not, or the MPO policy or not, understands, Mayor, the comments you've made and concerns you have regarding some specific aspects of the plan. That's not going to go away, and nor is the General Assembly, I think, going to go line by line item of if we did have made recommendations, this is in, this is out. That wasn't the intent of this plan in the first place. It was to be a plan requested by the General Assembly. In fact, asked to be bold about how we look at our region, how we look at the future of this region in a plan, and that's what this plan is about. The wording of a recommendation saying that by taking out that we're actually not recommending this plan, or that there's some additional things that we don't agree on, but in general, the idea of the resolution coincides with the plan that we're submitting to the General Assembly. That's it. We're at the last minute here, I think, of saying, well, I really don't, because I don't agree with some of the things in that plan, we shouldn't adopt a resolution, or the wording of the resolution should be, well, we really don't come to an agreement in this plan. And I don't think the work that was done on this resolution to be as broad as we could, but based upon the work that was done. And that is the plan of action to the General Assembly, including various recommendations.
Oh, then we are adopting this plan.
Yes, the resolution adopts a plan. That's what this is all about.
Okay.
It wasn't to be set up at the end of a vote on the plan itself. It was being formally done by a resolution back to the General Assembly adopting the plan.
As we contemplated this work, right, one of the things that we knew is that all of these solutions are inherently challenging, right? We're talking about reforming sales tax and thinking about how it applies to goods. We're talking about, how we make sure that we're increasing the fares so that they make sense and providing low-income fare subsidies, right? And so all of these policies are sort of best practice policies from across the country and other ways that transit agencies are funding them themselves. And I think we knew inherently we weren't going to have everybody's full support on every single last detail in here. And so what we wanted to do was put forth the best package of options for that next phase of discussion that needs to happen with the General Assembly, which is, how do we solve this problem? I had many conversations with mayors across the region about gaming and marijuana taxes. Well, when I think about how we should be supporting our transportation system to really strengthen our regional economic competitiveness globally, I want to make sure that we're not back here having, conversations about how much those revenues raise, and so that's why you don't see them in the report. And so just a little bit of context there. I know we've got Mayor Roderang, I know Nina, and we've also got Chair Conroy and County Executive Bertino Tarrant. So,
thank you. And Chair, with all due respect, and with due respect to my colleague to my right and to my left, I want to assure you, we have not collaborated on any of this. President Darch, are you a mayor or president? Village President Darch was working on this on the train. I worked on mine at midnight, and Mayor Grasso and I were just sitting together. So I don't want you to think that we've pulled an end run, that we're trying to maneuver at the last minute whatsoever. This was a coincidence that we're sitting together, but I hope it's also reflective to you that there are concerns by mayors in different counties and in different representative capacities. And to that end, again, I share my concern. As somebody who is a member of the CMAP board representing all of Lake County, I'm uncomfortable signing off on saying, I recommend cordon pricing. I recommend increasing tolls. I don't. I understand we need money. I understand 1,000% we need the resources for this very, very massive project. But I, as the representative of Lake County, can't go back to the people who appointed me and say, I'm good with this, because on those certain pieces, I'm not.
Again, as Aaron, not to repeat her or myself, again, we've been through this. We've been through options or suggestions out in the community. Example on finance. If somebody had some other idea, some other way to come up with a minimum of $750 million, or as being recommended, potentially $1.5 billion going forward to address the needs of the community. Nowhere in this report does it say it's taking away from the operations of CMAP or MPO or the RTA as to how we operate. That's not in this report, nor is it even suggesting that somehow we would be giving up opportunities to do what we do in the general provisions of this plan, is to think outside the box going forward. How can we address some of the sub-regional or parochial issues? That's not, this report doesn't take away from that. And as far as finance is concerned, look, I've been around for 43 years. You ask for $750 million or $1.5 billion, some taxes somewhere have to be raised. So to say, well, I'm not going to support any tax increase anywhere, and I'm not saying necessarily you said that in your statement, but that's been some of the comments at the last meeting. If you have another alternative, it would have been suggested and put into the plan. But let's be realistic. It's going to cause some taxes coming from some means or ways. That's, General Assembly asked for this, and it's going to go right back in their hands as to some recommendations or considerations, and it will be up to them to implement it. So when you talk about being passed on, yes, they asked for this, and we're giving it back to them, and here's some ideas about recommendations as to how you go about it.
That's the difference.
I'm sorry.
I like to speak to less about the resolution, but some of the comments about, and I feel like I sound like a broken record, but we come back to this every meeting about land use that supports transit. And I would like to say for the probably 1,000th time that I'm disappointed in my colleagues' limited understanding of what transit-oriented development, specifically equitable transit-oriented development, can do for this region. But there is a lack of willingness, political will, to think outside of ourselves, I have the privilege of having a car. I have the privilege of deciding if I'm going to drive somewhere or if I'm going to take public transit. We're trying to build a system for people who don't have that privilege. And I think if we continue to, I feel like there's an underlying message here about what we're not willing to do or what the suburbs are not willing to do as far as transit-oriented development. And I would like you to think outside the box. I have offered many times to help you with a 101 or to help educate people how Chicago is doing it. And no, it's not a one-size-fits-all solution, but you have to think about how can I make it a right-side solution instead of saying, no, we don't want this. And I just want to be very clear that if our values are to make a more equitable transit system and to make a more equitable region, that transit-oriented land use has to be a part of that conversation, or all of us are doing this in vain. And I will be voting with my values, and if you don't agree with, thinking about land use and having that be transit-oriented, vote no, because it seems as though your values are not necessarily reflected in that.
All right, Sandra had, what's next? Thank you, Director Rouse.
Thank you. This is Cassandra Rouse, Executive Director for the Illinois Tollway. And on behalf of the Illinois Tollway, we strongly believe in a vibrant transit system to serve Northeast Illinois, and we will continue to do our part to strengthen transit. For instance, creatively incorporating PACE bus access into our existing footprint and in any new projects that we undertake. And while there are a number of components of this particular plan that we are concerned about, we are ready and willing to work with members of the General Assembly to ensure the long-term viability of our transit systems. It is important to highlight that equity must be achieved throughout the transit system. My vote on behalf of the Illinois Tollway is to comply with the required submission of this report to move this process forward to the General Assembly to begin their hard work of reviewing the various options outlined in this report. As the General Assembly continues conversations, the Tollway will assist the members in any way needed. And at this time, I just ask that we please add my comments to the report, and a copy of this will be provided as well. Thank you.
Who's next?
So similar to the executive director, I'd like to start by saying that IDOT at the department we truly believe in a healthy, vibrant transit system And we believe that it is critical to the state overall mobility, economy, and quality of life. We know that transportation is part of a vast system in Illinois, with each mode impacting the other. A robust transit system is a key ingredient in creating a more equitable, underlying equitable region and help deliver access to opportunity to literally millions in this state. We do, at the department, we do approach all of our projects in the region with the belief and attitude that to the extent possible, transit must be considered and supported with any improvement we deliver for the public. We do believe that a safe, reliable, and accessible multimodal transportation network gives Illinois a competitive advantage and help make our state the transportation hub of North America. We do appreciate, and this was mentioned earlier, we do appreciate all of the CMAP's hard work and the effort of all of us collectively, all of the stakeholders that contributed to this plan. Once again, while I'm voting to move this plan on to the next phase of discussion, I want to highlight that my vote does not indicate that I'm endorsing the full spectrum of recommendation contained in the plan. However, given the importance of this issue, I do believe that an extended conversation about the future of transit in this region is a must and is warranted. We look forward at the department to helping the General Assembly and all the stakeholders as they consider this plan and do the hard work of developing policy to strengthen transit in the Northeast region. And my comments are available for addition to the plan. Thank you.
Other comments?
Well, I had County Executive Jennifer Bertino-Tarrant and then Sandy Hart over here. Carolyn, you're on deck.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I was coming in today and I was going to zip my lip and just say no. I'm a no. But I do take exception because this is something we hear all the time, that if we don't agree, it's because we don't care. And that is not true. I believe we need a solution. As far as bringing an amendment on the day of, you should come to Will County, because we have amendment after amendment after amendment on one vote. So that's no surprise. And I can agree that there's a difference between recognizing the hard work that the CMAP team has done, that you have fulfilled your obligation, as opposed to recommending this report. So I am okay with that amendment. But I do have one question of clarification. If we have a CMAP board and MPO policy board both voting, what happens if we're split? Because I'm not sure the legislation asks for both boards to vote.
We're required by state statute to have both votes. That's been
That's all I wanted.
that's been going back
Point of
20
order.
years over.
I have the legislation, and I will read from the legislation if I may. Give me a moment, let me get my glasses.
So
Wait, I am taking my moment. It shall be adopted by the MPO Policy Committee prior to submission to the Governor and General Assembly. The legislation, that is directly from the legislation. The legislation does not call for the CMAP board to vote. It calls specifically for the MPO Policy Committee to vote. So that is not correct. And up to now, we have gone line for line of this legislation and followed it almost like it is unmovable. But that line is quite specific, no matter what anyone else's interpretation may or may not be. And that ultimate decision is the CMAP board that makes that decision, if they want to vote. But the legislation does not call for both to vote. It calls for the MPO Policy Committee.
Point of order. We are now discussing the amendment to the resolution, are we not?
That is correct, and I apologize, the chair has allowed this conversation to drift outside what was the original, well, actually, there has not even been a motion of the amendment to the resolution.
I can do that, Jerry. So I would ask the move and seconder, I guess, if they would accept the amendment. Is it a friendly amendment? I want it to be friendly. And to read as now therefore, this language change to read now therefore, be it resolved that as required by the Act, the CMAP Board and MPO Policy Committee hereby authorize submission of the Plan of Action for Regional Transit to the Governor and General Assembly by January 1, 2024. That's my friendly amendment. I guess, do I need a second? Or, yeah.
Yep, need a second.
Second.
The chair will recognize a second if there is one.
So,
I just heard it.
so then any.
County Chair, yes.
Am I up? Okay. Thank you. My apologies, because I thought a motion to amend had already been made and a second. So just as we discuss this, I am fine for how it is written today, as a couple people have said, and I just feel compelled to speak since a couple of the members here are from Lake. And I certainly understand the concerns, especially Mayor Rodering, who is the Lake County appointee. But it's saying consideration of the recommendations contained herein. It doesn't say necessarily our recommendations contained herein. So these are recommendations. That's what the work is being done for, is to recommend a plan of action. I appreciate all of the hard work that CMAP has spent on this. This is what they are, right? They're a list of recommendations. Some are going to work, some are not. And I really want to thank Ms. Nina Idamudia for her words. I concur completely. I mentioned this last month. We talk about equity, but what I'm hearing a lot is a request for total equality, right? So I live in the suburbs, and the reason why it's valuable for me personally to live in the suburbs is because how close I am to public transportation and the proximity to the city of Chicago. So equity is important, and there have been many projects that we have seen across the Chicagoland area that have been done in certain areas and leaving other areas, mostly low-income areas, behind. I think this was something that was discussed just about 3 or 4 years ago, and finally that project is getting worked on. So I am fine with how this is written, and I appreciate that renewed statement. I would say, like, let's remember, let's not just talk about equity, let's really put something into place, and transit-oriented development is what people want. I think that is what people want, walkable, bikeable communities where they can access public transportation. So that's what we're fighting for in Lake County. Thank you.
Further questions, comments?
Jerry?
I'm sorry, I'm missing somebody. Where? Oh, Caroline, I'm sorry.
Sorry, thank you. I wasn't also going to speak, so I don't have anything formally to submit. But I do want to thank you for the amendment. I actually appreciate it from the standpoint of, we've talked about this all along, that we want this to be a regional report that we can all move forward. And I think that we are all at the point of moving this forward, and we're kind of hung up on that word of recommendations. And I'm not quite sure why. I did not see this as recommendations in the report. I think all along it's been options. It's been kind of an a la carte menu. I, prior to this, had never heard the term recommendations that we're actually recommending. I don't think that it's appropriate for CMAP to be recommending to the General Assembly how they should be voting or how they should be legislating. I think that we can present them with options. We can present them with educational information. Which is exactly what this report does. So I just would like to see us come to consensus on the fact that recommendations is not really the appropriate verbiage to be utilized in a report. When we're giving them options, we're giving them just statistics and information, which is really the core of what CMAP is about. So I support the removal of the recommendations if it can get everyone on board, in particular with moving this report forward, because we do have opinions that differ. And I think by presenting it to the General Assembly and allowing them to make those decisions would be the best way and the most appropriate way to do that.
Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you, Jerry. I want to say something on behalf of DuPage County, on behalf, I think, of all of us. There is consensus that everyone is in favor of the equity recommendations. No one opposes the equity recommendations. There is some disagreement on some other aspects of the recommendations. And so possibly as a suggestion and a further amendment, what this could read is to the Governor and General Assembly for their consideration, especially of the equity recommendations contained herein.
Mayor, I would disagree. Again, we don't want to get into specifics. That's what was
Well,
really been
but
said.
I also don't want to get into that this is a debate about the equity considered. That is not what's being said here at all. And I don't want it to be misconstrued that just because someone is now questioning some of the language, that we're questioning the equity recommendations. I have never heard any discussion about the equity recommendations being discussed. We're all in consensus. We're all in agreement. And I just want to underscore that as much as I can.
I appreciate it, Mayor. And again, from my mind, maybe it's small, I'm just trying to logically understand. One part of the paragraph talks about submission of a plan of action and consideration of its recommendations. What's in the plan that somebody from the General Assembly is going to say, these options are recommendations?
Right.
I'm just saying, in my own brain, I'm trying to understand, is the removal of recommendations saying that I can go back to whoever I represent and say, I didn't really vote for the plan, it's just a plan, and I'm not for anything that's in the plan. I'm just trying to understand logically the separation of a plan of action and recommendations. Shall we call it a plan of action and subjects, a plan of action and what? I'm just logically in my brain, I'm not getting into specifics, Mayor. I'm just talking about in general, the motion here about plan of action and recommendations. I can't somehow come up with another word to describe a plan of action if it is not in fact options, recommendations. How about consideration of the options contained here? Would that be better? I'm just trying to.
Options is better. Yeah, options is better.
Options.
And I think the fact that we have two options on governance speaks volumes about the fact.
Okay, I'm going to end this quick. So options seems like a fair compromise here? Yeah. Somebody's got to make a motion then.
No, I don't.
I would accept
we've
that
gotta
as
finish.
a friendly amendment to my amendment.
The chair will recognize the amendment, instead of removing recommendations, that the word options be used in the paragraph.
So moved.
You know what, I'll entertain a motion, the motion's been entertained. I'll ask for a roll call on the amendment.
Roll call vote on the amendment. Let me find my, all right. Amendment that the word recommendations be, that we delete for their consideration of the recommendations contained herein.
Instead of using recommendations, options, period.
Options?
I think I will amend my amendment
Thank
to
you.
that format.
The chair has recognized that already.
Right.
And
And
the seconder
there was a
agrees.
motion
And
and
a
a
second
second.
by Mayor Rodering. All right, Mayor Bennett.
Aye.
Frank Beal.
Aye.
President Brawley.
Aye.
President Darch.
Aye.
Mayor Grasso.
Aye.
Nina Itamudia. Mayor Noak.
Aye.
President Reinbold. John Robertson. Mayor Rodering.
Aye.
Stephen Schaefer.
Aye.
Carolyn Schofield. Ann Sheehan.
Yes.
Matt Walsh.
Yes.
Diane Williams. The motion carries.
The motion carries. Now, MPO, read roll call for that on the same motion, or on the same amendment to the motion.
All right, so for the MPO Policy Committee, we are recommending the option, well, is there first? Yes, thank you. Could somebody?
Chair stands corrected, that's right, because it was
And is
amended
there
again.
anybody willing to introduce the same amendment
I'll
on
make
the
that
other
motion.
side?
I would so move that
Go ahead.
amendment for the policy committee.
Mayor Schilke moves.
Second, Brawley.
Second, Brawley. I will do a roll call vote. Secretary Osman. Aye. CDOT. CMAP Beal.
Aye.
CMAP Brawley.
Aye.
I hope my staff are also helping here. CTA President Carter.
Aye.
Cook County President Preckwinkle. Aye. Council of Mayors, Mayor Schilke.
Aye.
DuPage County, Chair Conroy.
Yes.
Illinois Tollway, Director Rouse.
Aye.
Kane County, Chair Pirog.
Absolutely, yes.
Kendall County, Vice Chair Scott Gengler. Lake County, Chair Hart.
Aye.
McHenry County, Chair Bueller.
Aye.
Metra,
Aye.
Pace,
Aye.
RTA,
Yes.
Will County Executive Jennifer Bertino Tarrant. Motion carries.
All right, I wish I thought about that 20 minutes ago, but
Okay, I'm
that's why you pay me the
confirming-
big bucks to be chairman of this organization. All right, the motion now is a full motion with the amendment on the floor. Call the roll, please.
For the CMAP Board, Mayor Bennett.
Aye.
Frank Beal.
Aye.
President Brawley.
Aye.
President Darch.
Aye.
Mayor Grasso.
Aye.
Nina Itamudia. Mayor Noak.
Aye.
President Reinbold. John Robertson. Mayor Rodering.
Aye.
Stephen Schaefer.
Aye.
Carolyn Schofield. Ann Sheehan. Matt Walsh. Diane Williams. Thank you. The motion carries.
MPO?
And on the MPO side, we need a motion and a second. Moved Chair Kwasniewski.
Second.
Second Chair Conroy. IDOT Secretary Osman.
Aye.
CDOT Vig Krishna Murphy. CMAP Beal.
Aye.
CMAP President Brawley.
Aye.
CTA Dorval Carter.
Aye.
Cook County President Preckwinkle. Council of Mayors Mayor Schilke.
Aye.
DuPage County Chair Conroy. Illinois Tollway Cassandra Rouse.
Aye.
Kane County Chair Pirog.
Yes.
Kendall County Vice Chair Gengler. Lake County Chair Hart.
Aye.
McHenry County Chair Bueller.
Aye.
Metra.
Aye.
Pace. RTA.
Aye.
Will County Executive Jennifer Bertino Tarrant. Nay.
Thank you, CMAP and MPO, for your unanimous vote on this work that's been done. From day one, I knew this would not be an easy task, but believe me, it's transformational what you have done today. I've been around long enough to know that these opportunities don't come that often, and I think the report, the work done, is truly a plan for the future. And I just hope the General Assembly, I hope the members are here as sponsors of the bill, take this as seriously as they asked us to do, and come forth certainly with a plan ASAP. As we all know, that fiscal cliff is a year away, and we don't want to be back here or being asked again to do a report. It's in their hands. And I want to thank you, the board members, both MPO and CMAP, for your contributions to this, for your debate. It was not an easy issue, but when we formed CMAP, the whole idea was to bring this region together, and I think this organization has proved that over the years, that we can all work together. Chicago, suburban, and the counties under one roof. It's a lot of different personalities, a lot of different politics, I guess, involved in it, but I think we've shown that we're mature enough to come to consensus on many things, not just this, but certainly what we've done over the years. And again, I thank all of you. And again, one more time to the staff, from the bottom of my heart, the work that's gone into this has been incredible. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Secretary Osman, for leading this meetings today. I think, as we all know, this is by far the finish line. It's maybe just the first chapter. If you're into sports analogies, maybe that first mile maybe at 4 minutes and 30 seconds, so you can beat that world record, which was pretty amazing this weekend if you watched the marathon. But, I think the next step again for us is really to package this up, deliver it to the governor's office, the General Assembly. But I know that our legislative leaders, our elected leaders do rely on us as a region to know what our needs are and how we can be working together to address them. So while I don't hope for another plan of action for regional transit development, I do know that there are places where we will need your expertise, your help, your local knowledge as we think about sort of how we continue to develop sort of those next steps here too. So we will be calling and knocking on your doors as we continue to have those discussions, and I recognize you too excuse me, have opportunities to be in Springfield, and we'll be working with our partners as well. So thank you again.
Is there any other business before the board?
Yes, Mayor Bennett?
Yes, go ahead.
I want to thank you. Just in the last 10 minutes, your 43 years of experience in what is an underlying difficult issue, and words do matter. You just brought a sense of consensus here that did not exist 15 minutes ago. And you brought us there, and we're going to be able to adjourn today, all of us believing we have done the right thing. So thank you for that leadership.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. Moving on, is there any public comment?
So first, there's no items for information. I'm going to be by the book here. Any other business before the CMAP board?
I thought I asked that, but go ahead.
Did you? I don't know. Any other business before the MPO? All right.
I'm not hearing any public comment.
Public comment, I do believe we got 2 letters of support, I'm being told. I'm going to ask Blanca maybe to come up with some details here, just briefly. I'll just briefly summarize here that we've got a public statement before the board and the MPO Policy Committee prepared by Grow Greater Englewood, that is an organization working to improve the health conditions and introduce social enterprise for the betterment of the community, is pleased with the opportunity to share with us their Southwest Regional Hope. They wish to register their support on today's scheduled action, including Safe Streets for All, our regional engagement and our equity campaign on Vision Zero, on the program of projects approved in the STP program and on PART, and that the transportation programming approach is moving in the right direction. To this end, all of these items above contribute to Greater Englewood investment campaign and relative to alternative transportation streets and affordable access for public transit. Contact is Anton Seals. We'll make sure that this gets delivered in your board follow-up packet here. We also received comments from John Paul Jones from Sustainable Englewood. Also, a local advocacy group working on transportation planning, environmental remediation, and community greening initiatives, civic engagement practices, and socioeconomic solutions, land use and zoning. Again, supportive of the Safe Streets and All programming, civic engagement through the Transportation Alternative Program, and the support for the Englewood Nature Trail to the FY24 instead of the 25 allows local agencies and municipal partners to fine-tune their collective work towards a possible timeframe for groundbreaking. Again, also support for the PART program moving forward to negotiate a better transit system and cooperation from transit agencies and their unions. Any other public comments in the room?
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the work goes on. We will meet again next month. On behalf of the CMAP board, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second, no.
Moved in second. All in favor, signify by usual manner.
Aye.
Motion carried. Meeting adjourned for CMAP. Mr. Secretary?
Right. Likewise, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn for the CMAP policy. All in favor, say aye. All right.
Thank you all. We'll see you next month. Thank you.